Well, hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, right? Depending on when and where you are in this world and watching this broadcast, it's great to be here. I'm super excited because we're doing another MSP blast off. It's been a while since we've done this, and I'm super excited to be doing it again. It should be pretty insightful for a lot of you. I know that a lot of our audience here is managed service providers, so they probably get the principle of what a managed service is. But we have an expert in the industry from revenue. It's Tyler. Tyler, say hello.
Hey, nice to meet everybody. Thanks for having me.
I know he's going to give an overview of Revenueify, what they do, how they do it, why they do it, and we'll talk a little bit about the whole managed service process in this. Of course, in the end, what we really want to talk about is how does managed services and how can network monitoring be put together to create a more what I would call efficient solution for you guys, whether you are a managed service provider or a commercial integrator or a residential integrator, right? Thinking about how managed service providers help your business, in my mind, is what this is about. And then, of course, from my perspective, how we tie network monitoring into that too is going to be the real coup de grace on that. So before we get started, I always like to go over a couple of basic topics here. First of all, this is live. This is using GoToWebinar. Feel free to ask questions, right? We want to hear your input. We've got some people standing by on the back end. Take advantage of the questions section in the GoToWebinar control panel. If you have something more technical, feel free to reach out to sales@domotz.com. And we will bring Revenueify into that as well if it's specific to what they're doing. That being said, let's go ahead and I didn't skip a slide there, did I? I did skip a slide, sorry. I wanted to touch on the agenda, what it is we're going to be talking a little bit about here today. First of all, why customers buy managed services. I think that Tyler's going to be able to give us a really good, insightful and overview on that. The beauty of what they do too is on how to sell it, right? Which I think everybody can improve on how they sell their services and what they should be thinking about when they're doing that. We'll talk about assessing and kind of the pipeline. I like the way Revenueify thinks about this, and I think from my perspective at Domotz, right, hearing how they look at that funnel, I think is really important here. So that'll be insightful. And then we'll add that touch of Domotz, right? From a network monitoring perspective, a network management perspective, what are the things that a network monitoring solution does that can help you with your services and how we can bring that through? And then we'll talk a little bit about summing it up, right, and communicating with your customers. And let's see. You guys know about me, right? JB Fowler, Chief Product Officer. Tyler, give them an overview of yourself, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit about what Domotz is for some of the people that haven't listened to us before, and then we'll touch on your stuff.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you again for having me. Like you said, my name's Tyler Ebnett. I'm with Revenueify. My background has been, around managed services really since I got out of college. I started off with Best Buy, but what's interesting about that is as Best Buy acquired Geek Squad, I was part of the group that was helping to really align the first managed services that Best Buy rolled out nationwide. So early on in my career, got a lot of exposure to managed services, how to sell it, how to communicate the value. After doing that, went to one of the larger IT VARs in the United States and got to get exposure through that, not only from growing the revenue, but also through several acquisitions, being able to see different managed service programs. And so over time, we've really curated a playbook around driving recurring revenue, driving subscription revenue, and really delivering a great customer experience for managed services. And little tweaks that we can do to deliver better experiences, but also make the sales process much easier to be able to communicate that through. So I'm passionate about recurring revenue, believe in it heavily, and look forward to kind of talking through this and hearing some of your questions as we're going through the sales process as it relates to recurring revenue.
It's funny that you talk about your like how you got started, right, from Best Buy. Best Buy is one of those companies that over the last 20 years has had to make a strong transition, you know, from just being a brick and mortar store that sells goods to thinking about how they handle or how they want to get a piece of recurring revenue, right? As this internet age has come about, and there's so many service-oriented companies that are out there. You see groups like Amazon, you see groups like Best Buy, you see groups even, you know, the larger ones, of course, Facebook and all those guys. You know, how can they start to come up with some consumer-based recurring revenues as well, right?
Sure. Yeah,
So,
I mean, that's the way of the world. You know, you look at how we buy everything or how we consume, you know, technology or just products in general. So much of it is going to this recurring revenue, and you know, how do you communicate that value with your customers? Because it's a little different talk track than just walking out there and buying a TV, right? You know, if we can deliver it as a service or deliver it so that we know what experience we can expect after we buy that.
yeah.
Consumer, business, all of them are really trying to understand that and deliver a better customer experience. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's about, is your customer and the experience you can deliver.
I have continued to say that. I mean, you know, it actually is a good lead into our next slide here, which my marketing team always wants me to put up here. But you know, a little bit about Domotz, and in my mind, we touch on these four kind of high value props, right? But in my mind, it's about efficiency for you as a service provider, right? Helping your customers. So let me just quickly touch on these. Otherwise, my you know, the marketing team will not be happy with me, right? Domotz, for those of you that are not familiar with Domotz, right, is really about asset management, understanding what's on the network. How we do discovery and classification of all these devices are what helps drive efficiency. Of course, to what we're going to be talking about today, right, that proactive monitoring and alerting, right, being able to understand, are these systems that are in the network, are these systems that I've deployed, are they functioning properly? That's our next real core driver. And then making sure that you can securely manage those, connect to those things. Those are the things that we're about. And it wouldn't be good if it wasn't easy to do, right? So what we're trying to do is make it even easier, whether it's faster deployments or helping you understand and troubleshoot problems more effectively. So that's my pitch about Domotz. For that, those of you that don't know, if you haven't seen Domotz before, by all means, come in and check us out, do our free trials. Let's get to the meat of this though, right? So Tyler, tell us a little bit more about Revenueify. You know, I'm controlling these slides, but you tell me when you want me to shift to the next.
All right, fair enough. Well, yeah, Revenueify really is a sales operations, revenue operations, or consulting organization that is highly focused on recurring revenue. And so we work specifically with technology service organizations on helping them to look at their managed service program, their recurring revenue programs, make little slight tweaks, and then really help to deliver that customer experience, help the sales organization to communicate the value. And again, going back to some of our topics here for today, make it simple, make it repeatable, and have a process to be able to support that repeatability and that customer experience, so that you can predict what customer experience you're going to be able to deliver through that. So we do that through a couple different of our programs. Again, you know, some organizations we work with, we are their VP of sales, and again, that allows us to get real integrated into their processes and be able to help drive the solutions forward and have some accountability around it. But we also do, you know, traditional sales training around managed services, and just in general, you know, if there's other challenges within the sales organization, we're doing kind of that traditional sales coaching, sales consulting as well too. So that's our background. Again, we work specifically with technology VARs on being able to drive these key points forward. So I think that's good, unless you got any questions about that.
No, yeah, I'm sure people do, but the fact that you do consulting on, you know, how to bring in a managed service, but then if somebody just needs to let's do change implementation, right? Because that's a big part of this as well, right? Some people don't know how to sell services, right? They may be more familiar with just selling hardware. So the fact that you can come in and help coach and then even help drive that from an external perspective, right? I think it's pretty awesome. So good. Keep losing my focus on my presentation. So this brings up the question, Tyler, and I think, again, I said this at the beginning, a lot of people may think they understand managed services, but from your perspective, right, what is a managed service? And how do you guys, from a Revenueify perspective, how do you vision this?
Yeah, we've got the Webster definition or whatever you might want to call that up there. But as we think about managed service programs, again, it's really about delivering a better experience at a low or more predictable cost structure for organizations. And you think about those comments, again, a lot of you can deliver better experiences. You can be more proactive. You can give your customers better data than they can do on their own. And so it's really about that experience. Again, I'm going to go back to that customer experience quite a bit, because that really is what managed services helps to drive, and it helps to drive that repeat business. So you're delivering better experiences, you're growing revenue because you've got that committed piece in there, but it also ends up expanding a lot too if you're utilizing some of the different tools that Domotz or Revenueify can provide. The other piece that I really think about with managed services, and this maybe doesn't get talked about as much, but are the customers that all of you are calling on, your end user customers, they're not in the business of managing these solutions that you're selling them. And so
That's
if they
exactly
focus, what was that?
that's exactly what I was about to say earlier, right? I mean, your customers are coming to you, right, because they can't do something, right? They're coming to the VARs, they're coming to the MSPs, they're coming to the integrators because they want a solution, and frankly, they don't have time to install it. They don't have time to implement it, let alone manage it, right? So sorry for
Exactly.
interrupting, but I thought that was such an important point.
Yeah, and I think that is a huge point. And if they invested their time that they do have into their core business, what does that do for their business? They can focus on driving internal revenue or better experiences for their customers, while we have the experts that are utilizing best in class tools to make sure that these systems are operating at high efficiency.
Absolutely, and that probably leads to this next slide, right? Why do organizations, why do companies buy managed services? And I know this is a kind of a Revenueify specific slide, but what's your thoughts on the key takeaways here?
Yeah, one of the interesting pieces, since we really don't have anything to sell end users other than maybe some sales training if they are in a technology type organization, but we get the ability to be able to ask end users, why have you chosen or not chosen to use some of these programs? And so we get real feedback, because they're not trying to sugarcoat it or change it because they think we're going to try and sell them something afterwards. And so, what we've heard over our research, it's, again, we've talked about this predictable or lower cost scalability, but really when I think about these points here, again, we're delivering, all of them tie back to that customer experience that we're going to deliver, and
Yep.
how we're going to manage it. We can extend that life cycle, or we can extend their usability or their functionality of these solutions by us managing it and giving them some of this back. So a couple interesting ones, we see data compliance coming up more and more. There's always so much conversation about data risk out there. And, when internal folks are managing this, they don't know if they're doing this. Maybe they don't get to all the trade shows that all of us get to that help to build a high level of data security. We're seeing that one continue to go up and up on the list there. So as we think about delivering managed services and how you're delivering your program, are we making data compliance as part of that? Because I think end users are really starting to ask for that more and more.
I'm in complete agreement with you on that. You were talking about the scalability. It's important to note, again, from a Domotz perspective, right? And I've said this on many, many, many webinars that we've done and the trainings that we do, where Domotz ultimately is meant to be a tool, right? But it's a tool for you as a service provider to help be more efficient. If we make you more efficient, if we help you with resource utilization, ultimately that is going to give you that scalability that you talked about. And I think it's important to note that the end customer, right, the organization in this slide is really looking for how can they better scale with the resources that they have. And I'm going to say whether it's implementation of conference rooms or whether it's implementations of like an IT department, right, an outsourced IT department, which is what MSPs often are thought of as, right? They should be thought of as partners, but that organization is really trying to find a way in which that they can better scale. So making sure that you bring in a managed service aspect, right, that brings in efficiency to that organization is really what I think some of this is about. Would you agree, Tyler, on that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, bringing that in, being able to communicate, again, communicating it, how do you communicate that then back that we're providing that value? So
Yeah,
100% agree. The other piece that, I'll add on this one, it's not on here yet because I don't really know how it plays in yet, but maybe you've got a thought on this. This year has been, you hear about AI everything. I'm wondering when AI is going to make it to this and how we're going to play into that. I don't know if we want to broach that here yet, but I do start, we're hearing a lot of people talk about that and if that's going to start being part of a managed service program.
It certainly falls under this new technology bucket that you have down here. And one of the things that, I consistently talk about, I've been to a couple conferences where we spoke on the topic of ChatGPT and how this affects organizations. My response to that, especially in regards to this webinar and thinking about managed services, is that whether you are a service provider, whether you're an integrator, I would tell you that your customer, right, is very focused on the things that they need to know, right? They're trying to build revenue for their company. And again, it goes back to they're outsourcing to you to be that expert in certain areas. When it comes to AI, when it comes to ChatGPT, when it comes to what Facebook is doing or Apple's doing with their new VR headsets, whatever it may be, they're looking to you to help answer some of those technology questions as to whether they should be focused on that. And that absolutely should be a part of your managed service. We're going to talk about QBRs and technology business reviews. And in my mind, that is a point. And by the way, Tyler, it's going to be when we talk about that funnel, right? We're going to talk about how this is a recurring cycle. And in my mind, having technology discussions is an important part of managed services.
100%. Agreed.
Your next slide here. It's a little bit short, right? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, as we look at, what has been said about managed services throughout the years, whether it's IT or AV security or AV solutions, security solutions out there, what a lot of organizations have said to do is just put it on the quote, right? Like the different industry organizations, the different manufacturers, they've said, hey, if you just put it on the quote, you're going to be successful. And we've looked at that, and there's a lot of organizations that don't see a lot of success from that. You might get onesie, twosies here, or you might get some here and there, but really, if we're going back to this great customer experience, I kind of tie this back to buying a car. You get an idea of what you're going to spend. You like the car. You're going through that, and all of a sudden you sit down, and all of a sudden they got all this other stuff on there. They're like, well, most people do this, but so we just thought we'd throw it on there. And that's the experience that we're delivering to our customers when we just put it on the quote, right? Like we've heard that saying, just put managed services on your quote, and some people get it. And there's some truth to that. Again, Best Buy taught that way back in the day, for their service plans, like, oh, just assume the sale, just assume the sale. And,
Yeah.
you get 10% win rate, something like that. And hey, that's good if you're just starting out, you don't have a defined process. But, if you follow a correct process, could you get 40% win rate, 50% win rate if you follow this? And on the other side of it, are you going to deliver a better customer experience because you're talking about it, you're providing value early on in the sales process? So when we think about sales process, we think the industry has lied a little bit and said, just put it on the quote. And we'd advocate that, hey, if you're looking for a high level of customer experience, we wouldn't recommend doing that.
Yeah, I'm so with you. And in all fairness, and I haven't told a lot of people this, so I'm opening up this now. But while you started at Best Buy, I kind of started at Circuit City. Okay, so Circuit City long gone, but I remember the days where we were selling product, and part of my goal on the sales floor was to put that extended warranty on it, right? And that was just the way it worked, right? You just did it. And, a lot of people would say, I don't want that. They would get rid of it. A lot of people would just add it on there because it seemed like a good thing. And I think I mean, gosh, that was 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago, right? And that mentality is still there. So I'm with you on that, and we need to change that. Before I get on to this kind of new way of selling managed services that you're going to show here, I would point out that a critical part of selling managed services is making sure that your customers are aware of what it is you're doing in this service. Nobody wants to hear that the stuff that they're going to buy or are buying is going to break. But the reality is that systems today are extremely complex. They require firmware upgrades, whether it's for security reasons, right, or data compliance reasons, like you were pointing out is coming up new and more and more, or they just want to get new features, right? These are opportunities for you guys to make sure that managed services are there, and it's a reason that the customers want you there. Tyler, just so you know, we do have some questions coming in. I'm going to hold some of these questions off till we get through the presentation, but I just want to know, let people know that we're seeing some of those, and we will get to them. Okay. Any other comments you wanted to make on this before we kind of go into that, selling of managed services, Tyler?
No, the next slide kind of is a transition from this, so if we're not just going to put it on the quote, how are we going to represent our managed service program and communicate the value? And, what we've kind of worked on here, and again, this isn't necessarily a new concept. We've just really applied it to the different industries that we help with. And it's really called a bow tie funnel. And as we've looked at, your traditional sales funnel that, it's big on the top and it goes small to the bottom, we've kind of turned that to the side and focused on this bow tie funnel. And by doing that, we can focus on the key areas where we can communicate value for managed services, and we can build a business case for doing that. And then we can really expand on existing managed service contracts. So as we think about the front end of the funnel, so our sales process, pre-winning a project, we're probably doing a good job of marketing. We've got a customer database that might be out there. We're marketing to that. Our sales team is identifying, who's the ideal customer, who's the ideal opportunities. And then from when we get to the next point there, that really is where we have noticed managed services are one. And that really is the qualify, assessment, presentation stage. And you think about what Domotz does, you can help drive that piece. You can help with that assessment really on the front end to understand, what devices are out there, and help customers understand what their network, what their structure really does look like today. And so it really starts with that front end assessment, understanding what they have out there, and then understanding, okay, now we know we've got a little bit of a scorecard. We know what's out there. So what challenges is this bringing to your organization? And really understanding those business objectives that the project and the managed service solution can solve, and then really tying that back. So we've noticed, I mean, again, your initial project, your new customer, this really is where managed service is won, not necessarily just by putting it on the quote.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and you're definitely speaking to some of the later slides, right? When you talked about how Domotz helps with assessment, we'll get into that later. But I agree with you. I mean, understanding, the customer is going to come to you and say, or you're going to go to the customer, and they're going to say, "Hey, we have problem X," right? Well, in reality, problem X potentially can be solved multiple ways. You as an expert know how you've solved it in the past. And I think talking to them about that, but also asking them, why is this a problem, right? Getting kind of deeper into that. So that way you can come up with a proper proposal. And again, right, selling is always thinking about your value proposition and getting to that recurring revenue. You've got to be thinking about how can my managed service side of this sale, right, roll into solving their problem and making it effective, right, if they want to use you.
Yeah, and moving their business forward. I mean, at the end of the day, these end users, for-profit business, they're in business to make money. How can we help them add more value to their customers, add more value to their ownership structure? I mean, that, again, we're trying to solve problems within their organization, within the tools that we have. And I think that the tools that Domotz provides, the tools that everybody on this webinar provides, can help really move our customers' business forward. And if we focus on that on the front end, it's not about price, it's not about the speeds and feeds or any of those kinds of pieces. Now it's about what business objective are we going to solve for you through some of these solutions that we have in our tool belt.
So much of that, Tyler, in my mind, is you as the owner of a business, you even as a salesperson within the business that's talking to another organization, you've got to remove yourself from thinking like a contractor or thinking like a third-party vendor, right? And start thinking of yourself and positioning yourself as truly a partner, right? The word partner gets used a lot, especially in the IT space. But thinking about how you're going to help that organization grow their business more effectively, how you're going to be a true partner, be a consultant, if you will, to help them grow. And like you said, it's about helping them expand, right? They're in the business of whatever they're doing in order to make money so that they can continue surviving and thriving. And you should be thinking about how you help there.
Right, absolutely. Well, and so that's really, and I'll go back one quick note on that. We talked about the front end, but so you win that initial project. I think it's super important, and I think this is a missed opportunity for a lot of organizations. But it's after that first project, or it's after the project when the customer is happy. We're delivering a great experience through your managed service program. I think it's important that you've got a sales process in place to either do client business reviews, annual business reviews, whatever they are in your or in your industry or your organization, but making managed service part of that ongoing commitment to your customer. Like being able to say, hey, here's the value that we provided, here's all the services that we offered to you, and oh, by the way, you've got some of these other devices, other rooms, other pieces of equipment that we're not monitoring here today. How'd you like to have that experience on that? So I think having, we talk about the front end again. We deliberately move the sales funnel sideways here and then have it look like this, because where you really grow your managed service is after that first sale. Going back, getting additional solutions out there, expanding your service, going into maybe other technologies that you still could do or deliver a great experience on. I think that's really important as you think about really growing your program, because now you can exponentially continue to grow that.
I would,
And I think,
go ahead, Tyler.
okay. I was just going to add one piece on there too, because, you know, a lot of times we get hung up on the individual projects, individual opportunities, and we're so focused on those opportunities. And I think the other piece that is important, and I'd be curious, you know, from the group too, who's managing this metric, but that lifetime value of a customer. When you're thinking about being a true managed service provider, it's not about that one project. It's not about that one opportunity. It's about what is this customer going to provide back to us over the lifetime of their engagement with us. So I think, again, really thinking about that and managing that metric, it changes the way you look at some of these individual opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, if you're just doing a hardware sale to a customer, there's no guarantee that more hardware is coming to you, right? But if you can find a way to add managed services so there's recurring revenue, and going back to what I said before, if you're continuing to engage with that customer on a regular basis, putting yourself, right, your company at the forethought of that company's mind, because you're talking to them, you're continuing to add value. That's how you can start getting to where you have recurring monthly revenue and consider or be thinking about how there is a lifetime value to this customer.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention here, Tyler, and this is a little bit of a segue, but I want to ask you this. I mean, are you familiar with Ian Altman's same side selling book and concept? Have you heard of that?
I have not. No, I have not.
It's a great read, especially for sales organizations, right? Anybody that's on a sales team, I really like it. The whole so shout out to Ian on this, but the concept fundamentally is, at least for the part that I'm speaking about here, a lot of times somebody who's doing the selling looks at the point at which the project was awarded, right? So the end of the front part of this funnel, right, as being the deal being closed. The problem is that on the customer side, the person that now has signed that contract and agreed to whatever services that you're now providing, a lot of times they don't feel very comfortable with what they've just closed on, right? This notion of buyer's remorse, until they see that the project completion is done, right? In this case, I mean, using the terms from your bow tie funnel here. I think it's a really important thing for managed service providers and integrators to realize as they're implementing a service-based solution. Yes, you may close the deal. It may be exciting that you got that 10-figure contract that's on a monthly or annual basis, whatever it is. But remember that it is the customer that is in this now funny or awkward phase where they hope that you're going to deliver on what you promised, right, inside that service level agreement or with the goods that you are providing them. And I think if salespeople and if companies, right, service providers can keep that in mind as they are going through this bow tie process, it really helps with discussions.
100%.
What do you think about this slide here, Tyler?
Yeah.
Right? Talk about the buying process a little bit.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it during the bow tie funnel. Again, we've developed a process, we call it FIND. So it's facts, important issues, needs, and then dreams is what that stands for. But we use that acronym, and we've developed a methodology really to help uncover those business objectives early in the sales process so that we can help drive recurring revenue. And so through that FIND process, again, we're really focused on how do we help that organization overcome business challenges and move them forward through some of the solutions that we can provide. And that sparks a different level of conversation. You'll notice that we don't have a letter in the acronym about technology or speeds and feeds, anything like that. We really are focused on how can we be a business advisor to this organization? And that really was what it's about. Because again, I'm going to tie back to everybody should be focused on this customer experience. And if we're trying to solve business challenges through tools like Domotz or tools like some of the solutions that you might provide from a hardware standpoint. Now, I mean, they're focused, you can really deliver a different level of experience by being that business consultant versus just a technology consultant. So that's our find process. Again, we're using that early in the funnel on there before we win a project. But we also think about, you know, through that process, if customers aren't climbing the ladder with us and wanting to be, you know, we'll go back to the IT word, a partner, you know, does that change our interaction? Knowing that we're focused on lifetime value of the customer, are we wanting to work with organizations that maybe are not going to be high on that lifetime value of customer? And so through that find process, we're really trying to identify, is this the right customer? Are they going to provide value as a really good lifetime value customer?
You know, Michael Michalowicz, right, just referencing another book, talks about the pumpkin plan, right? Understanding which customers are going to provide you that lifetime value, right? That kind of leans towards your objectives, right? The directions you're going is a critical part of this process. So understanding and assessing your customers' needs is important, but also making sure that their needs align with the directions you're going, right? Or that you think you can take them is a critical part of being an effective managed service provider. I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, and I bring this up as kind of a slide, right? The slide within a slide. We talk a lot on our side, and part of this comes from some engagements we've done with CompTIA and what they do on their channel development councils. This notion that the funnel, right, that bow tie funnel you showed, it kind of looks like you go from the left side to the right side and you're done. In reality, the sales process, right, is a continuous process. It's actually very, very cyclical. We've used these kind of 5 points on a circle here, you know, talking about consultation, quoting, onboarding, upselling, and then TBRs, right, or QBRs, whatever you want to call them. Those are all points where you have an opportunity to continue to talk with the customer, consult with them about new technology as an example, whether it's AI like we talked about or something else that's out there and that may be affecting their business, but then find a way you can bring that into your customer again to help them be more efficient, help them improve their services. And so it's really an not necessarily iterative, but cyclical process that must go on. I think, Tyler, I'm curious about your point here. I mean, the only way this works effectively is if you're in constant communications with your customers. Would you agree with that?
100%. And I mean, you've got it perfectly here. It starts with being a consulting. Everything that we would recommend doing, it's you positioning, you know, your sales team, your organization as a consultant and helping organizations navigate through these challenging technologies and the changing technologies. And to your point of this, you know, being a circle, like if you're truly managing that lifetime value of the customer and utilizing, you know, Domotz to be able to expand that value of each customer, because that, you know, using a tool like that, you're seeing other opportunities that maybe you wouldn't be able to see had you not had a tool that's looking at that, but then being able to apply that knowledge back in a consultative way. You know, having data for the sake of having data doesn't really do you any good, but being able to apply that data to their business and how it's going to move their business forward, I think that is so important, and you hit it perfectly here with that, starting with that consulting piece.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, it's those communications, right? And by the way, different organizations are going to handle things like technology business reviews and whatnot with their customers differently. It may not be the salesperson now, it may be an account manager or an account executive, right? It depends. It could be a project manager, right, or a program manager. But the point is that whoever's doing these reviews with your customers, it's understanding what's going on in their organization so that you can think about the value proposition that your company provides, right, as a service provider or as an integrator to help them continue to build out or solve problems that you see, right, or that they are seeing. So
Yeah.
that being said, you led right into how Domotz helps, right? From my perspective, and I kind of broke this up into three different phases from your bow tie funnel, right? When it comes to identifying opportunities, whether you're starting out with the customer, right? This is an initial engagement, or whether this is a continuous thing, right? Looking at, let's assume you're using Domotz, but quite frankly, any network monitoring solution is going to help you with this, right? If you can understand new devices that show up on the network, and then figure out how or why those devices are there, how your customer's implementing them. Maybe they're adding a bunch of digital displays and you weren't aware of it. Well, how does that affect you? If you're a managed service provider, now you have to be worried about security, right? You need to be thinking about, do these devices have vulnerabilities that may open up my customer's network? Are these networks segmented? Did they install, and if you're an integrator watching this, did they change out a display in one of your unified communications rooms, right? How do you address that? Are these opportunities for you to expand your service or to add service? Tyler, one of the things we talk about at Domotz is security cameras, right? If you are a service provider and you discover that there are 10, 15, 20 different security cameras on the premise or on the site that you're dealing with, that's an opportunity for you, right? That customer installed those security cameras for safety, for insurance, right? For some sort of security measure, right? They want them to work. They want them to work all the time. So monitoring those things effectively is a revenue generating opportunity for you, quite frankly. So,
well, it's a risk mitigation opportunity as well too. I mean, God forbid, you have an incident and one of those cameras was down and you didn't know it, and now you want to go back, right? I mean, it's all of these conversations that you can have to be able to, again, add more value to your customers and help them overcome some of these potential business challenges they might have.
There's so many, I've heard that so many times, right? Large organizations will often have a security team. Maybe they have somebody physically looking at cameras through a video management system or something. But a lot of times, smaller customers, right? People with less than 300 people in their organization, they'll have these cameras, but it's only as a kind of backup solution, and nobody's monitoring them, right? This is where network monitoring becomes so valuable. So this is one opportunity. The next thing that I saw in your bow tie funnel, I kind of tied these two things together, right? When it comes to the assessment and the proposal phase. In my mind, understanding what the customer's network actually looks like, assessing that, if you're a managed service provider, I know you've all gone through this, right? You've asked the customer, it's like, hey, how many devices do you have? How many printers? Blah, 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 whatever it is you're asking. In reality, the customer doesn't know, right? Putting a tool like Domotz in there to help assess and get an exact number of MAC addresses or devices that are out there, looking at how their network is or is not segmented, right? Finding inconsistencies with respect to what they say versus what you actually see. These are all things that is an opportunity that network monitoring brings you. Consider it good or bad, right? Finding security vulnerabilities, finding devices that are out there that may not be on proper versions, right? Or maybe on older versions that have a lot of CVEs. Those things are out there. But just like I said before, right? If you find now that there's security cameras that are out there that you can manage, or there are printers, right, that you can manage, right? These are things that can now be added to your value when it comes to managed services. Any thoughts on this, Tyler?
I mean, I love this idea. And again, we hear from customers when we say, man, we should be doing an assessment on the front end and we should be doing some of this work on the front end. They're like, wow, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't know if we're going to be able to get our sales team to buy into that. They got a quota to hit, right? Like they're not going to want to spend more time on these opportunities. And I think, your tool here allows them to be able to do this on the front end without adding a lot of additional work to that.
Yeah.
And again, if you can qualify that opportunity now and you can find true business objectives that you're going to overcome, I mean, maybe you don't need to have 50 opportunities in your funnel. Maybe you need to have 25 really good ones now, because you're utilizing tools like this to make a better experience, expand the projects, the size of those projects, and again, improve your win rates, because you're being that consultant versus just somebody that's responding to a technology project.
Yeah. I mean, I say this to a lot of service providers, but Domotz fundamentally is meant to be a tool for you. And if it's not doing one of two things, then something's going wrong, right? It better be saving labor costs, okay, making you more efficient, or it better be bringing you new opportunities to increase your revenue, right? Which ultimately leads to more margin dollars. And I think that using a tool like Domotz, using a network monitoring solution, really does help you not only identify those opportunities that you have, but it's also about ensuring that things are running the way you expect, helping your team be more efficient when they get into the situation with the customer after it's awarded, right? And that kind of brings us to, how does Domotz help you on that back part, right? After you've closed the deal, right? How do we help you be more efficient, right? And again, I go back to Domotz ultimately is a tool. We can be a basis for which your managed service program is in effect. If you are and these are some examples about how people use this. If you're an integrator that's out there and you've installed a unified communication systems, or you've installed digital signage, the thing that we're going to make it easy for you to do is understand the status of these systems, right? Are they up? Are they meeting the service level agreements that you have in place, right? When it comes to uptime, we're going to make it easy for you to remotely log in to those systems and reconfigure them, reboot them, power cycle them, update firmwares, right? Those are things that you as an integrator, you may have had to sign up to with respect to the SLA. But I also look at it as a way, when you see changes happening on the networks that you've been given, right? Looking for those new opportunities, looking for reasons to communicate with the customer back towards that quarterly business review or that technology review that you have. Great opportunities. Ultimately too, Domotz is a great solution when it comes to reporting, right? And when I say reporting, right, it's about helping you with communicating with your customer to say, and this is just one example, we've installed 5 conference rooms for you. We noticed that 3 of these conference rooms are utilized all the time. The other 2 are not. Here are some reasons we think why, right? Here's some improvements we can make and changes. That's just one example from an integration perspective. When it comes to service providers, right, a network monitoring tool in my mind is really about helping you understand what the network it looks like, what's on the network, how is it segmented, what's the topology look like. We talk a lot about security awareness within Domotz. So for you as a service provider, making sure that you're helping follow the security frameworks that your customers are expecting you to follow, right? Domotz is a critical part of that. So these are just ways in which, after the sale, you can help satisfy some of those service level agreements. Tyler, from your experience, anything else that you can think of that a network monitoring tool has done for some of your clients that helps with this?
Well, I think the big thing that it provides is it takes away the reason to not do this CBR or technology business review. We hear a lot of organizations that are like, oh, that sounds like a big ask to build this whole thing out. And what I would say is just get started at least with some version of it, even if it's not extensive. Domotz has great reporting, and you can start with the reporting just from that, and that would be better than not doing this, because again, you can really expand your managed service revenue by having a sales process or having a process to be able to do these business reviews with your customers. So what my advice would be, just get started if you're not doing it. It doesn't have to be perfect to roll it out, and you can continue to refine over time. But again, growing it, expanding your managed service. This is very important to being able to do that.
And you said this at the very beginning, these 3 points, and you just said it again about making it simple. You know, Domotz is an amazingly powerful tool. Those that have been using it for a while understand some of the capabilities. We can get into, you know, custom scripting for analyzing specific variables or sensors within devices. It can be as complex as you want to make it, but I want to point this out, and Tyler, you and I have had many conversations about this. Keeping it simple, right? KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? I think that that's such an important part of starting out with a solid managed service. Customers, just as an example, right? Customers want to know that the systems that you've deployed are working, right? They're online, they're functioning like you said they would. That's such a critical part of what a tool like Domotz does, right? Hey, this system is online, it's running as expected, right? We see, and Tyler, I don't know how many countless examples that you probably have from your side, but how many times have you dealt with an organization, you know, where you're consulting with them, where they have tried to over-engineer the managed service to the point where it becomes useless? I mean, have you dealt with that?
Oh, all the time. And again, I can't remember. This was a webinar I was on 2 or 3 years ago, but I don't know who said this quote, but somebody said you can't steer a parked car, right? Like it's better to at least start your program. And again, you can continue to tweak based on customer feedback. And you know, part of your CBR is you should be asking for feedback. What else should we have? But start your program out and meet your ideal customer profile, but don't try and build it for the remaining 20% that's out there. Build it for your 80%, which is, you know, your majority of your customers. Make it simple, make it streamlined, and then from your sales process, again, have it repeatable so that people can follow it. Customers know what to expect as they're going through it. I think, you know, again, don't over-engineer it. We're all guilty of that in the technology services world here, is that, you know, we're proud of the technologies and what we can do, and the very, very smart folks that we have on our teams. But when it comes to managed services, you know, all the successful ones, it's simple pricing, simple structure, and it's very repeatable, and you can scale that through your, you know, your ideal customer.
Yeah, I agree with you on the consistent and repeatable. One of the things that you were touching on, which I think is it's kind of a challenge for, especially I see this more on an integrator side, but anybody that's kind of on the technology side, where they came from a world of thinking about speeds and feeds, have this problem where they really want to think more like a hardware process when they should be thinking more like a software and agile process, which means, you know, go out with a minimum viable solution, right? A minimum viable product is the term that often gets used, and then think about how that can be changed. You know, to the diagram that's on the symbol, you still want to get from point A to point B, okay? But if you can think about how can we make small adjustments to help us get to the end goal while still meeting the needs of our customers in a consistent and repeatable way, I think is a really important part here.
Yeah, I'll add one more piece to that. Saying no to customers sometimes too helps that, because a lot of times our managed service programs get real unwieldy because a customer asks us if we can do this, and we always say yes. We always want to appease the customer, and so I think, you know, being okay with saying no, like, hey, this is our program, and you know, this is what we can deliver, and we think that is going to address your business challenges. So be okay with not making your managed service custom for every single customer as well too. That keeps it simple and keeps it repeatable.
It's so true. I tell my kids this all the time. I mean, there's times when we just have to tell them no, right, for whatever they're asking. But the one thing that I always try to do, and I think this is important for when in the business world too, if you say no, I think you need to tell them why, right? And if that why is that it doesn't align with your business objectives, or if that why is because you've seen other customers go down that path and they've made mistakes, be open with that, right? And have that conversation, because that could be a dialogue that you now have to help open up new opportunities. So,
100%.
the last bullet before we get to some of the Q&A side. And again, if you guys have questions, feel free to use that chat. I know our team has answered some of these already, but we'll address some of these. Supporting the sales process, right? A big part of what Revenueify can do, right, from a consultant perspective, is help support a sales team within an organization. I assume when you're thinking about a managed service, you're thinking about how can the technologist, right, the support team, the engineers, the guys that are out implementing the managed service, how can they create a solution to help support the sales team? Is that an accurate way of thinking about this, or would you say that differently?
I think that's part of it. Excuse me. The other part of it is, how do you look at that bow tie funnel and apply your specific your organization to that, and then being able to empower the sales team with tools to be able to support both the front end and the back end of that process, so that you can get after that lifetime value of the customer. And I think that's the important piece, is arming the sales team with the right tools and being able to encourage them to follow those processes, so that your organization can get to the point of managing that lifetime value of customer and focusing on it versus just project by project.
Completely makes sense to me. Q&A time. So Tyler, we did get a couple questions in here, and I'm going to first of all, we always get this question, and I should have said it at the very beginning, right? This thing is being recorded, and unless something completely goes awry, we're going to make it available on our websites, and for those that have registered, we'll send out an email as well. So that's there. One of the things that a question that came up, which I think this is an understandably, I'm going to say difficult question, and there are multiple answers to it, but it was really around, a customer saying, and I'll just phrase this the way it was written here, right? A customer saying, we can't let you on our network because we have proprietary data on the network, and would with having monitoring behind that firewall, et cetera, is going to cause us problems, right? So I think that's a very network monitoring specific question. So let me address it first, and then, Tyler, I want you to address it from your point of view. First of all, if you have a customer like that, I hope that you, as either a service provider or even an integrator, are speaking to that customer about how to properly segment the network. The idea behind having VLANs, right, to segment a network so that the systems that you're monitoring with a monitoring solution can't even see or touch the data side of that. You have to have those conversations. And by the way, this is part of the value that I think you as the service provider, you as the integrator need to be thinking about. This often happens with, we see this question come up a lot of times with integrators that are dealing with a customer that has an IT department, and they have a flat network, right? You need to be talking, and you need to educate yourself, by the way, around networking, so that way you can talk to that customer about how they should segment that for your unified communication system or your digital signage. Because I completely agree, UC systems, even telephony systems, okay, security systems, and in fact, just so you know, point of sale systems require that you have things segmented off the network. But those are conversations that you need to be having in order to help give, I guess, trust or build trust with your customers that the network that you're monitoring, the systems that you're monitoring, do not touch that data network. You want that anyway because it helps limit your liability. So that's my thought on that. Do you have responses to that, Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, we hear that a lot too, and of course that's always a valid concern that we want to address. And through our find process, again, we want to uncover that early in the sales process. The early you can uncover that challenge or that potential objection, it gives you time to be able to, as JB said, educate of how their network is today, or what challenges might come up from that. But if you're talking about that early and you're addressing it, you've got the opportunity now to be able to uncover why. Did they have a challenge in the past? Did they have something that would make them feel that way, that they don't want something on their network? But
Yeah.
really bringing it up early and having that conversation, uncovering it, it gives you the opportunity then to be able to navigate those waters throughout the sales process.
Yeah. This last question that I'm going to ask, just in the interest of time, is, and this is a shout out to you, Tyler. Right? They were specifically asking, what is Revenueify? Right? And I know we addressed some of that at the beginning, but some of the questions like, are you coaches? Are you consultants? Are you software? Right? And I think the answer fundamentally is on the coaching and consulting side. But do you want to address that question specifically?
Yeah. So again, we're pretty broad because we touch revenue operations, and so that's a little bit of a broad topic. But our
Yeah.
focus, again, we're revenue consultants, so definitely consulting, helping organizations within their revenue organization to uncover, hey, where are some holes that need to be plugged. And what we really bring to the table is a data-driven approach to sales consulting, sales training. We can go through and identify key areas, identify ROIs for investing in those key areas, and then build a plan to be able to address that, whether that is through traditional sales training, maybe some management consulting within the revenue organization, or a lot of organizations do choose to engage us as either their VP of sales, chief revenue officer, or sales manager, that we can drive real results through that type of engagement as well too. But the answer is consulting, sales training, yes, all that. Not so much software yet, maybe, but maybe in the future.
I will say, Tyler, you and I have known each other for several years now, and we have organizations that you support and that uses Domotz. And I think that several of those organizations have gotten a lot of value out of the consultations that you guys have provided. And that's coming from a third-hand feedback on my side, which is exactly why I wanted to have this part of our MSP blast off, so that people were aware of that. So that being said, I want to remind everybody, right, stay in touch with us. If you have more questions, reach out to us. We're on all the social channels. You can email us at sales@domotz.com. And for those that have registered, I know that you'll get some follow-up emails as well from us on this. And if you want to get more information about Revenueify and how they can help, check them out, right? Look them up on the website, or come to us and we'll put you right in touch with Tyler directly. So with that being said, thank you very much. Tyler, I appreciate you joining us here on this.
Yeah,
Yeah, we will see you soon, I'm sure.
all right.
All right, talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.